Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Masuma Lalji, and I'm a busy mom, as I'm sure many of you are, and dads do. And I'm just trying to get iftar on the table. This is a very special month for us. We are commemorating as Muslims the holy month of Ramadan, and we're fasting from sunrise to sunset. During this month, we are doing our best to be the best neighbor, community member, family member. We're doing this all year round, but this month really gives us a springboard going into the year. But of course, iftar is really important, and it needs to be protein packed, nutritious, but also really delicious. I love sharing recipes. I'm not a professional chef, but I love putting things together. My family gives me good feedback, so I thought, why not share it with you? Hopefully you'll be able to replicate it and enjoy it too. Now, I've shared all the recipes for the items that I'm making today, which is oven roasted Gajjar chicken, and I'll explain what that means in a little bit. Roasted potato rounds, and my take on a Mexican corn salad. I've given all the ingredients and the recipe list, which should be posted for you if you're following along. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to answer. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go to my first recipe, which is the oven roasted Gajjar chicken. So I'm starting with oven roasted Gajjar chicken. Many of you already know what Gajjar means, right? It's an East African / Indian spice blend. It's tangy, it's spicy, it's finger licking good. It's a barbecue sauce. It's our version of it. And you might have seen that, you know, if you are in East Africa, in food stalls in Tanzania, out on the streets, a lot of people make barbecued Gajjar chicken. So this is my take on it. It may not be absolutely authentic. I like to do a East meets West type thing, and you'll see that in the ingredients that I use, but I am going to get started here with a whole chicken, and you could use 1 or 2 baby chickens. This happens to be a rather bigger, you know, like a 1 to 2 pound, 1.5 to 2 pound chicken, so I'm only using 1 today, but my recipe does have, you could use the same marinade for 2 of them. Skin on, please. This recipe will need the skin to be on because it makes for a very flavorful and moist chicken, and I'm going to show you how to prepare it before it goes in the oven so that you can make sure that the chicken cooks really fast and the skin gets as crispy as possible. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is butterfly the chicken. I've already washed it, and I want to let you know that it's important, if you can, to soak it in a mixture of 1/2 cup of vinegar and water that covers the top of the chicken. And the reason you do this is twofold. One, because it's like a brine for the chicken. It helps the moisture stay in the chicken. And the second thing is that it removes the gamey smell. The vinegar does that. So I really like using vinegar or water when I'm washing poultry. You drain that off completely and you rinse off the vinegar. So there should be no residual vinegar smell or taste. So you've rinsed it off well. And now you're at the point where you're ready to cut or butterfly the chicken. What I'm doing here is I'm turning it over to where you can see the tailbone, right? And we're going to remove the tailbone and butterfly it. The butterflying it means once we remove that tailbone, the chicken is going to lay flat in the tray. And when you apply the marinade is going to touch all the portions of the skin, and it's going to hit the heat all at once. So you don't have to do any turning around of the chicken once it gets in the oven. So let me go ahead and show you how I butterfly. Start with the tail side first, right? And you can see the bone is right here, and I'm just going to go up on both sides vertically with a sharp pair of kitchen shears, and I'm going to, you know, make a cut here all the way to the top of the neck bone. I'm going to do that on the other side of the tail, running back up again to remove that spine there and allow me to be able to lay the chicken flat. Okay, once you have that, you can set that aside. If you want to use that tailbone, clean it up and use it for soup, like a stock, you can do that. A lot of people do, so it's not wasted. Ramadan, Shahru Ramadan, the month of Ramadan is a good time not to waste. So I would say definitely keep that for soup stock. Also remove the wing tips, and the reason I do that is because I'm not going to be turning around, turning the chicken around once it gets in the oven. I'm not going to be tenting the chicken, so the wing tips will burn. So remove that, okay? So now you're left with a chicken, essentially, that is going to lay flat. You can try to spread the top part and crack a little bit of the breastbone just so it can lay further flat the way I just did. And then you're going to take the chicken and you're going to lay it flat in the foil tray. Now you see what I mean. You're able to lay the chicken completely flat. The skin is completely up there and it's going to catch all the marinade at once. I should say that you should be preheating while I'm washing my hands here, because it's poultry and you always want to keep clean and not do any kind of cross-contamination. So I'm washing my hands. You should be preheating the oven, and you should preheat it up to 450 degrees. Don't go any higher than that because the skin will burn too much. And actually, once the chicken is in the oven, ovens can vary. So I'll show you what I mean, where you can adjust the temperature and make sure the chicken comes out the way it should. The way, you know, you might have seen on my final recipe there. And if not, I'll show you today. So you've got the chicken here. And here's my plate of all the ingredients needed for the marinade. I'm going to put these tools aside. And I'm just going to put on my glove. The reason I'm doing that is because I will be using red food dye. Now this is something that's a signature ingredient in a Gajar type masala. And a Gajar, again, is like a spicy, tangy barbecue marinade, very common in East Africa for chicken. And it usually has red food dye, or you can use an ingredient called Kashmiri red chili powder, your choice. I find that the red chili powder just adds more bulk, doesn't work for me, so I use the food dye. Okay, so what we have here, just to show you, and I'm going to add it in while I speak to you, is I have two, and actually let me grab a spoon real quick. I have about 2 tablespoons of butter, more or less. You can eyeball it. I tend to use less butter, but 2 tablespoons will work great. Actually, will work really well. So that's the butter. I have about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, excuse me. You want to put that in there. I do have 1 tablespoon of butter here, but I've reserved that because when I make the barbecue sauce or the Gajar marinade, that will work to make the sauce really shiny. I'll show you that when we get to it. So then I have about a heaping tablespoon of garlic powder. I use garlic powder, not garlic salt. You don't need any extra salt, but the powder works better than fresh garlic here because it clings to the skin of the chicken better and you'll get more of a garlic flavor. Okay, I have about a half a teaspoon of onion powder. You want to put that in there. I have about a couple of teaspoons of red chili powder. This is to your taste. So red chili powder is pretty spicy. If you don't want it super spicy, reduce that. This recipe is not, completely, where you can't move the ingredients out the way that works best for you. So 2 tablespoons of paprika. This is regular paprika and not smoked. Put that in there. Salt and pepper to your taste. I've put out, what I think is best in the ingredient list. About a tablespoon of salt, about a teaspoon of pepper. 1 teaspoon of citric acid. This will give the tang in the marinade. This is a very important ingredient. You can use lemon juice or fresh lime juice, but I prefer to use the citric acid. It's more of a punch of that tangy flavor, signature Gajar. Okay, so put that in there. And then I have some jalapeno pepper powder. Put that in there. And this is the East meets West dried rosemary. Put that in there according to your taste. Of course, I've listed the measurements. And this is coriander, a heaping tablespoon of that. And a teaspoon or so of cumin powder. Okay. And then in this marinade, you're also going to add a couple of teaspoons, and I eyeball it, of red food dye. Okay, and you're going to start to mix it around. You're going to notice that it's going to be a little chunky, the marinade. That's okay because The butter is now completely melted. You can use melted butter if it makes it easier for you to mix things around. But what I like to do, because this is going to later turn into a sauce, I like to add a little bit of water just to get it to a nice pasty consistency. So let me show you that. Just a couple of tablespoons of water. And again, I'm eyeballing it just to get it to a pasty consistency. You can't go wrong if you add a little bit more water. You'll just end up with more sauce. But this is the consistency that you should have. Okay, so this is our Gajar marinade. Here's another neat thing about this recipe. You do not have to marinate this ahead of time. You know, like I started off with, I'm a busy mom. I sometimes plan things at the last minute based on what my family wants to eat for iftar, you know. So it's not something that has to be pre-planned. You can just put it on the chicken, marinate it for 20 minutes, and you'll still have an amazing chicken, because what we're going to do is make a sauce that you'll glaze the chicken with, and it's going to keep all the flavors there. So you definitely don't need to over marinate. Okay? So what I'm going to do is now take this marinade with my gloved hand, and I'm wearing a glove because it's got red food dye. So if you don't mind the red food dye, you know, you don't need it. But you're going to spread it all around. Spread it all around the chicken. Here you will get the back side as well, so turn the chicken over temporarily there and make sure you grab the marinade and rub it into all the places that should capture the flavor in the chicken of this lovely marinade. Making this dish, when I first made it many years ago, I was inspired by, you know, a fried chicken version recipe. I don't think anywhere close to this recipe, something entirely different, but it was fried and it was fairly red and tangy, and I really enjoyed it. So I thought, let me go ahead and make a little bit of a healthier version, and it's turned out to be really good. So I will say one thing, you can go ahead and smoke this at this point. To get that barbecue or charcoal barbecue flavor in there. And how you do that is you take one of the charcoal briquettes, you can get that at a hookah shop or an Indian store, and you take that, you heat it up, you put it in a foil, like a little piece of foil, and you pop it in the tray, like, you know, anywhere you want. And you pop the hot charcoal in there. Make sure you have something to cover the tray with completely, because as soon as you put some oil on the charcoal briquette, it's going to start smoking, and you want to capture the smoke in the chicken. And what that will do is it will smoke that chicken and give it that barbecue flavor. Again, if you don't have that, you don't need that. I generally don't do that. It still comes out awesome. Okay, so there you go. That's that Gajar marinade. Okay, now that you've had the chicken in the oven, remember it was starting off at 450 degrees, preheated. The chicken hits the oven at a very hot temperature so that it can start to sear up and cook really well. And then once it's in there, every 30 minutes or so, you want to baste the chicken. And after about an hour and 10 minutes or so, you can go ahead and remove the chicken. I'm also going to show you a side dish today, oven roasted potato rounds. When you have about a half an hour left with cooking the chicken, you can pop the oven roasted potato rounds in with the chicken. So let me show you here, because I have one completed for you. So here's the chicken that's fully cooked. About a half an hour before this chicken was completely done, I put in the oven roasted potato rounds, which I'll show you how to make here in a little bit. But that will cook together and you will save time that way. You don't have to do that, just an option. All right, so here we have the completed chicken. You can see the beautiful barbecue flavor, texture, the colors, just awesome, okay? So we are not going to waste any of this lovely marinade. We're gonna make that into the Gajar sauce. Let me go ahead and just move the chicken aside to a serving plate. That'll become part of our final serving plate, and then I will show you how to get that Gajar sauce in. Okay, so now we're ready to make the Gajar sauce. Okay, I've turned, in a small saucepan, I've turned the stove to about a medium-high heat. Okay, every stove is different, so whatever your medium-high heat setting is. And I'm going to strain the leftover marinade from that oven roasted chicken into the saucepan. The reason I'm straining it is because you're going to see bits and bobs from that chicken sauce in the marinade, and I don't want that to go in there because I want a smooth sauce at the end. I want to, you know, create that lovely shiny sauce, make it really appetizing. My son Hani Muhammad is actually taking the video, so I'm going to ask him real quick to just grab me a spoon, and I'll be right back with you. All right, so I finished straining the sauce in there, and you can see it's going, I'm wanting this sauce to reduce. Okay, at the same time, I want to add just a little bit more of the red food dye. Again, you can use Kashmiri red chili. I would not recommend it because it will add a little bit more bulk to your sauce, and I want to keep it nice and light. You can adjust the coloring as you want. I'm looking for that nice punchy red color. You don't need to add any extra ingredients into this sauce. We've already done that with the marinade. You're good. It's going to concentrate and become even more nice, I should say. So here it is, just so you can see what it looks like as it's simmering, and you can see the consistency is pretty light at the moment, but by the time we're done, it's going to be slightly more syrupy, and that's exactly what I want. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes or so, and you can see it's a little bit thicker. I'm not looking for a gloopy sauce, just slightly syrupy, right? And what I'm going to do now is take it off the heat to stop the cooking. And I'm going to do what French chefs do, is I'm going to add a bit of butter, that reserved 1 tablespoon or so of butter. And that's going to add a nice shine to the sauce. So I've taken it off the heat because I want the butter to slowly melt in there and cause that nice shine. You can see it's a nice deep red color, and it's going to be tangy and spicy and garlicky. That real umami taste for that signature Gajjar barbecue flavor. Again, disclaimer, my take on it. Okay, so now that I have the Gajjar sauce, barbecue sauce, you can see it's got a lovely sheen to it. I am going to take my sauce and I'm going to put it in a bowl, because that you can serve along with the dinner. I'm also going to take this sauce, excuse me, and I'm going to take a pastry brush and just glaze my chicken with it. And as the chicken sits, this glaze is going to stick onto the chicken. It's going to adhere to the skin and make it even more yummy. Okay, so let me just clean up a little bit and we'll move on to the next recipe. Okay, so now we're gonna work on our side dish. Now the Gajjar chicken, you can serve it, you can make like an Afghani brown rice, pilaf, any kind of rice dish, pasta dish. I really like oven roasted potato rounds. They're like an easier version of a baked potato, and you'll see what I mean. So what I've done, I like to use Yukon Gold potatoes. You can use any type potato. Really, this one is the best one though. I highly recommend it. And I've cut it into like half an inch or so thick, a centimeter or so. You know, however, whatever thickness you prefer. Really, the thickness will depend on how long you put it in the oven for. So I think this works best for that last half an hour. If you want to pop the potatoes in with that chicken and reduce the oven temperature to about 400, that should do it. Okay, so in this bowl of potatoes that I've cut up, I have my seasonings. I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of EVOO, right? Extra virgin olive oil. Pop that in there. I've got some thyme to your taste, although I have the measurements in the recipe box. Garlic powder, about a teaspoonful, again to your taste. This is enough, otherwise I feel like that's overpowering. Salt and pepper to your taste. Some paprika. And this is not smoked, regular paprika, okay? You don't have to use all of it if you don't like it to be super red, you know. But I happen to like the masala color. Just goes nicely with the chicken. Okay, so once I have that, let me grab a spoon real quick here, and I will mix this up. Get the seasonings all over. You could even do this in a foil baking tray. I actually already have some potatoes ready to show you what the finished product looks like and what I do after that, or the finished dish looks like. So I'm not putting it in a foil tray, but when I usually make this, I put all of the potatoes in a foil tray, add all the seasonings, so it's all in one tray. You don't have to transfer it from bowl to tray, and you know, but this is gonna go into a Ziploc bag in the freezer for me, and I'm gonna have another dinner sometime. So another great time saving trick there. Just make a double batch and save some. Okay, so you get the gist. You would put this in a foil tray and you would pop it in the oven around 400 or so degrees. And I will say you do need to cover the tray so that the potatoes steam and cook. We're going to get to a point where the potatoes are ready for me to uncover after about a half an hour or so that I can do the finishing touches on it. Okay, so I've turned off my oven now, and I'm opening up my oven, and you can see I've put the potatoes covered, as I mentioned before, and I'm going to uncover. Be careful because there's going to be steam coming out. You don't want to burn yourself, so wear some oven mitts. You can see the steam coming out, right? You've got the potatoes which have been steaming. At this point, what I want to do is check for doneness. So you can take a fork, and you can see they're completely fork tender. That's what you want, fork tender. So what I'm gonna do, I've turned off the oven, I have my residual heat, and I'm going to apply some shredded cheddar cheese all over the potatoes. See, this is that East meets West. Masala and cheddar, it just goes so well together. Perfect side dish. And you're gonna close the oven for about a minute, and the residual heat of the oven is gonna melt that cheese for you. And then we're gonna top it off with some scallions. Okay, so the cheese is melted. Open up the oven, you can see that. Okay, lovely and melted. You don't want it to get super hard, so literally 30 seconds. Okay, close that oven up. You should have some spring onions, a couple of stalks or so, cut up. You're gonna put that all over. And that's gonna get that baked potato flavor in there with the cheese. You can serve this with sour cream if you wanted. If you wanted some extra fat, I don't think you need it, but you know, people love baked potato with sour cream, so who am I to tell them no? Okay, so there we go. That's our dish there. And let me go ahead and move it over. And I'll let it hang out a minute while I get my take on the Mexican corn salad ready, and then we'll plate it up. Okay, so now we're ready to make our third side dish, or our second side dish, excuse me, for a total of 3 dishes today, a full menu. This is also a great accompaniment. It's a Mexican corn salad. Sometimes a full-on salad can be a little bit hard to digest when you're having your iftar meal, just because there's so many different varieties of food to eat, thankfully, that we get sidetracked on the salad. So this is a fun way to get some vegetables in, still tastes awesome, really easy to eat. Okay, so I have again on medium-high heat put a large skillet on here, and I am going to just make sure the butter is not too hot there. Moving it to the side, trying to control the heat. Grabbing a couple of tablespoons of butter in there. And what I'm going to do is add 2 packets of frozen corn. Now, you can certainly use fresh corn if you have the time to take the corn off the cob. Using fresh corn, hey, more power to you. That's awesome. I don't have that time, so I'm just going to use the frozen corn. It works just as well. Just make sure it's completely frozen when you start off with. You don't want watery corn. So we've got you can see the butter is browning already. We're going to pop 2. These are about 10-ounce bags of corn. Any kind corn is fine. I just like the, you know, the variation in color. It makes for a prettier dish. You eat with your eyes too, for that matter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get some color on the corn. I'm trying to get a little bit of golden toastiness on the corn. And the reason I'm doing that is because it adds flavor. Color adds flavor. You can do this in the oven. You can char it a little bit. You can put the corn on the cob if you're using corn on the cob, on the grill or under the broiler, and you know, do it that way. No problem. But this is just easier for me. So I'm gonna let this get a little bit toasty before I add the rest of the ingredients in there. So let me go ahead and get that toasty, and then I'll come back and show you what to do next. Okay, so you can see that if you come close to the corn there, you can see we've got some toastiness going on. We're still not where we want it to be, but you can see some of that char there, and the corn is starting to pop. At this point, I want to add 2 cloves of fresh garlic. I'm not adding it earlier because the garlic will burn, and that won't taste good. So just, you know, you'll continue to caramelize it, so the garlic is going to get cooked. It's not going to have a raw garlic taste, but the corn just has a head start. So you can get some nice color in that corn. So I'm going to give it a minute. You can see that yumminess, that toastiness coming through all over. And you can hear the corn popping. Turn down the heat just a touch and add your salt and pepper. Add some paprika. Add some jalapeno pepper. Those are your dry ingredients. Just a disclaimer, because these are dry spices, when they go in, you may cough a little bit, so try not to have little children around. Not too close anyway. And you can turn that off because we got it to where we want it to be. Slightly toasty. The garlic's cooked a little bit. We've added the spices. The next step here is just to let this cool down for 5 minutes. This salad is going to be room temperature, served best at room temperature. You can eat it, you know, a little bit after. It doesn't have to be immediately after. It actually tastes better as it sits. So, okay, so there we go. Okay, so here we are. We've let our corn cool down for about 3 to 4 or 5 minutes or so, just to where it's not steaming hot. Okay, it's still warm, still good. And we're going to add the rest of our ingredients in there. So I have a 1/4 cup of mayo and a 1/4 cup of sour cream. You can go less than that. I've put a little water and I've made it into this crema consistency. Now, if you're lucky enough to find Mexican crema, go ahead and use that in place of the sour cream. You'll still need the mayonnaise though. Mexican crema is just like a lighter version of, in consistency, lighter version than sour cream. So you're gonna pop that in there. The going to add that yummy, creamy factor. Cooling. Really delicious. Okay, so that's that. You're also going to add about a half a big red onion here. You can see I've chopped it. Add all that in there. Remember, you've added jalapeno powder and some paprika, so you're not going to need too much spice here, but you will need a jalapeno pepper. I've de-seeded it and taken out the ribs, so it's not super spicy. That's important because then it'll just be too crazy. If you like it like that, hey, that's fine. But pop that in there. The juice of 2 limes. Pop that in there. And then I have a bunch, about a cup worth of chopped cilantro and about 4 to 5 stems of scallions chopped up. I've just put it together in one bowl here just for ease. Pop all that in there. And then I wanted for you to be able to make this recipe with whatever you have in the fridge. Feta cheese and Parmesan, grated Parmesan. These are cheeses that we generally have in the fridge. Most people do for various dishes. So I wanted to use these, but you are welcome to use some authentic Mexican cheeses in place of these. So I'm just going to put about, I'm going to eyeball it, but about a 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan. It's going to add that nice tang, sharpness of the Parmesan. So 1/4 cup about. And now I'm going to mix it all up. The feta I'm going to use just to garnish. If you're wondering why I didn't add the feta, that's just going to be for garnish. It does add an awesome flavor to it, but it kind of gets lost in there if you don't add it on top, and I want it to stand out that you're eating, you know, you have that flavor profile of the feta. That's different than the Parmesan. But you can see as I'm mixing it together, it's really appealing to the eye with the purple and the green and the yellow. This goes in line with eating the rainbow, right? I know it's got the sour cream and mayo, but hey, feel free to reduce that. Use light mayonnaise, light sour cream, use yogurt. Greek yogurt instead of the sour cream. All these are good options. Again, this is for our iftar menu. We haven't eaten all day, so I think a little bit of sour cream and mayo should be just fine. Okay, lovely. Look at that. Beautiful. Very appetizing. Okay, so we're getting ready to plate. I like to have everything all on one plate and then some extras on the side for anybody who wants that. The chicken being the main attraction here. So you can see I've added some of the potatoes, the chicken glaze has really stuck on the chicken like I told you. So it looks really good. We've got that reserve marinade, and now I'm going to add some of this Mexican corn salad right on the side here. And again, you've got a ton here. We just want to show sort of all of the yumminess all on one plate. Garnish with some limes. Make it look fancy. Fancy schmancy. Okay, here's where we add a little bit of the feta right on top. And I'm going to add it right on top of here. This is extra. You don't want it. You don't have to have it. But me, I think it adds a special little creaminess that is really complimentary. And then I have some cilantro leaves as well that I've reserved. Put that right on top. And there we go. We've got our full dish. We've got our Gajjar chicken, our roasted potatoes, and my take on the Mexican corn salad. I really hope you like this and your family likes it and you try out the recipes. And I really wish you an amazing rest of the month of Ramadan with all of your good deeds be accepted, and an awesome year ahead, inshallah. Thank you. Khudafis.